The opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the official positions of the sponsors, advertisers, or presenters. Advertising does not imply endorsement by the hosts, guests, and presenters.
If you don't understand how our eyes see light and see objects and color and all the rest of it, you're not going to be able to be an effective lighting designer. So my number one rule is see the effect, not the source, every time.
Welcome back to the Restoring Darkness podcast, hosted by myself, Michael Colligan, and my colleague Mark Baker from Soft Lights Foundation. On today's show, we have James Solecki. James has been involved in the lighting industry since the age of 14, getting his feet wet and catching the lighting bug while managing stage and live event lighting gigs. He went on to found INTEGRA Bespoke Lighting in 1999, growing it into one of Ontario's leading outdoor lighting companies, focused on providing residential and commercial properties with green, environmentally friendly, and dark sky friendly lighting systems. James carved a niche in the lighting industry. With over 700 systems installed and with clients across Ontario and throughout North America, INTEGRA became a sought-after brand in outdoor lighting systems. In 2015, James opened Island Villa Lighting in the Turks and Caicos Islands with the intent to bring leading-edge lighting design, specification, and installation services to the Caribbean. Since arriving, he has expanded his operations to include a design consultancy, a distribution company, and a contracting business. He's been busy. TCI clients include both high-value private villa owners as well as top-tier condominium resort operators. James and his INTEGRA business were honored with 6 awards of excellence from Landscape Ontario. INTEGRA has also been awarded Company of the Year in the Huntsville Lake of Bays Business Excellence Awards and received an Environmental Stewardship Award from the Muskoka Heritage Foundation. Now, if you don't know all those names, that's cottage country in Canada or cabin country in Ontario. Beautiful, beautiful area. Realizing a need to vertically integrate, James expanded his operations by opening JSL Design, an interior lighting design firm, and ventured into the realm of LED lamps, building the first successful complete line of LED lamps for outdoor lighting systems. James has always been active in his community, volunteering his time with many worthy causes such as the Lions Club, Chamber of Commerce, School Parent Council, the YWCA, and others. He lives with his wife in Turks and Caicos. Wow, that's pretty nice. And relishes every chance he gets to host or visit his 2 adult children. IslandVillaLighting.com, and his social media links will be in the show notes. Before we go there, though, I want to tell you guys about Induction lighting. Yeah, remember LED's ugly sister that never really took off? Actually, Tesla Lighting Co., that's TeslaLightingCo.com, is making a case for bringing induction lighting back, and it's for a lot of the reasons why Mark Baker is so involved in Restoring Darkness and why we've shaken up the lighting industry so much. LEDs are different. There's a different light source than other traditional light sources, and we found that, in their current configurations, some people have health issues with them. And so we're trying to solve that problem from the lighting industry's perspective. That's my perspective. And from Mark's perspective, the health effects perspective, we're trying to find solutions. And we believe that induction lighting may offer one of those opportunities. So if you got a project and it's outside and you need low Kelvin temperature and you need long life and you need energy efficiency, but you can't have LED for some reason because of sensitivities or different things, or you're ready to try something new, check out Tesla, or something old and now new again, TeslaLightingCo.com. I know the people there, Philip and Mike and the rest of the crew. They're good guys. Check them out. Before we get to our interview with James, though, we got to go over to Mark Baker for the Soft Lights update. Who are you shaking down now, Mark? What do you got going?
Right. Okay. So in California, I'm working really heavily on the LED flashing light issue that is so debilitating for me and for others on vehicles. So in California, we have something that seems to be unique among the other states, which is that they're illegal. California has put together laws some time ago, of course, that was very restrictive on the flashing lights. So California Highway Patrol has allowed flashing lights that are controlled by electrical current, that are turning on and off by electrical current. So they also allow rotating flashing lights. What is not permitted at this time is a flashing light that turns on and off by voltage. That would be LEDs. So California law prohibits these. Well, so what? They're everywhere. Everywhere. They're all over all the vehicles in California. So I've been contacting all the government agencies and letting them know that they're illegal. And guess what? I don't know. That's not really our problem. So I have recently discovered that there is a law in California about waste, fraud, and abuse. And there's a specific code in California that so I can now sort of leverage that. And I've started just recently, just this week, actually, contacting cities, contacting states and saying, you're purchasing illegal auxiliary LED flashing lights. Why are you doing that? This is waste, fraud, and abuse. So if nobody cares about health, nobody cares about safety, okay, what about money? So that's our current strategy. Just start contacting all the government agencies and that you're purchasing something that's illegal.
You know, isn't that interesting, folks? So what if you're new to Restoring Darkness and you haven't heard the Soft Lights update before? What Mark Baker is, he's doing something very wise, and I'm going to go back to him with one question on what he said, but I just want to tell the listeners and the viewers out there that what Mark Baker is doing is he's looking for different existing laws that can be applied to the problem of night pollution, or it used to be called light pollution, but really it's not the light that's polluted, it's the night. So we're looking at Restoring Darkness. What Mark Baker is really trying to do is find different seams of where the lighting industry may have gone wrong in the development of LED lighting technology. And there's lots of different areas, and he's pushing those different areas. Mark, do you think there'll be success with this one? I know that there's a lot of problems with the headlights, the flashing LED lights on top of emergency vehicles. There is a lot of suspicion that this actually reduces visual acuity and causes more accidents than it actually prevents because of the brightness, because of the flashing and the blinking, blinding people. Do you think this one's going to fly?
I do, Michael. That's why I'm spending so much time on it. It's rare to find such a concrete law that says this is not So California has a California Vehicle Code section 25250, which says flashing lights are prohibited unless otherwise permitted. It's rare to find such a strong law, right?
Sure.
So, since they're not otherwise permitted, that gives me strong legal foundation.
In the past, people would have thought Mark Baker was some kind of, man of La Mancha, Don Quixote, out there, trying to kill dragons that don't exist. But actually, he's starting to make a lot of progress. So follow his work at softlights.org. You can donate to his foundation at restoringdarkness.com and click the donate link. Or you can donate to the Restoring Darkness podcast, the production cost, if you feel like it. No pressure from me. James Solecki, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. You're with a couple trouble causers here. You know that, right?
I'm starting to learn that. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us when did these terms, we're kind of trying to sort through the terms correctly. A lot of people say dark skies. I prefer night preservation or darkness restoration. Nothing against Dark Sky International. I think they do great work. But I don't think dark sky applies. But just to ask, when did the darkness restoration, night preservation, dark skies, whatever you want to call it, when did that become important to you as a lighting professional?
Right at the beginning of my career, my standalone career, I left the city of Toronto in '98 with my wife, and we moved up to Muskoka, to cottage country. And I finally had an opportunity to pursue a dream, which was to open a landscape lighting business. I was very passionate about it. And just as I got going and got the company registered and was about to begin, marketing, the issue of light pollution, termed dark skies, was on one of it's cyclical, that this environmental concern and all the news and stuff around it tends, in my experience of just under 30 years, tends to go in cycles. And it was peaking in Muskoka, and they had just formed the Torrance Barrens Dark Sky Preserve just south of Gravenhurst. And there was a real push on from a couple of different channels to essentially try to regulate or prohibit outdoor lighting. So here I was with a business upstart to introduce outdoor lighting to cottages and residences across the area, and I was looking at being legislated out of work before I could even begin. And so, not being satisfied with that, I decided to learn everything I could about that issue at that time. So that's right at that time, 98, 99, dark skies was a huge buzzword. The IDA, I believe, had been founded at that point. This issue was important in many other jurisdictions, but it was just starting to hit in Ontario. And that was my first exposure to the whole notion of, residential or small scale light pollution.
Right. And I think the IDA, it's called Dark Sky International now, but it was called the International Dark Sky Association. I think it's late 80s, early
Correct.
90s. And I remember I started in the lighting business around 98, 99 as well. And I remember significant momentum in that space from 99 to about the dawn of the LED era. And when the LED era began, it bulldozed everything dark sky and just blasted it out of the way, and nobody talked about it. Nobody raised their hand. From IES to dark sky. I mean, dark sky was talking about it, but they were just drowned out by climate change and the need to reduce energy consumption. Do you feel like there was a lot of momentum leading into the early 2010s and that was lost?
Like I said, I've seen three cycles, I would say. Certainly late 90s, early 2000s, it was a very important topic. You're right. I started adopting the use of LED lamps in landscape lighting around 2005, 6. Got fully engrossed in the mechanical and electrical design of these lamps in 2008, and sold my business that I'd started in 2010. And I had moved it on from concern. I find dark skies to be too constraining. It to the general to the public, it sounds like you're worried about astronomy. And it wasn't all encompassing. So I shifted my focus away from dark sky preservation and called it environmental lighting. So I started to educate. My process has always been one of education, dangle the carrot rather than, hit with the stick. So I've been educating my markets for many, many years about the importance, what light pollution is, why it matters, and why it's bad for us, and what we can do about it. So I'm more calling it more environmental lighting. That would be, that 2000 sort of era. Dark skies and light pollution issues I've saw another resurgence, just before the pandemic, late 2019, it started to more plan, a lot more focus on regulation, ordinance, bylaws, and that type of thing.
And you mean in terms of action at the municipal level where these types of things are prosecuted? And there's no in Ontario. It's not really where we live, where James and I live. There's not really a provincial-wide thing, and I think it's in the same in the U.S.
No.
Mark, where it's local municipalities, counties, regions, these kinds of things that make this kind of legislation. Have you been involved at all, James, in the creation of any of these ordinances? Have you been on any panels or any expert? Yeah. Tell me about that process and what it's like.
I've worked with, I believe it was 5 different, maybe only 4, municipalities or regions, districts level in central Ontario, from sitting on peer review boards to actually working on language for various regulations. I'm not such a fan of bylaws, to be honest with you, but regulations, ordinance, bylaws, that type of thing. From the guidance and education level right up to working with municipalities to form their outdoor lighting, rules and regs, that type of thing.
Have you ever seen a bylaw officer enforce, or a city, a county, or municipal employee enforce an ordinance?
I haven't witnessed that, but
Okay.
again, my push was more for education and regulation in the terms of standards of practice, rather than I'm not a fan of the approach of bylaws. The problem with putting a law in place is it needs to be enforced, and
Sure.
most municipalities don't have the budgets or the staff and skills and knowledge on board to be able to enforce these things. They end up being complaint driven, and then it turns into being neighbor on neighbor. And I think it devolves the communities rather than encourages people to do the right thing.
It becomes more like the fence police. I have,
Yeah,
when people like Toronto has a fence police department. Like all they do is fences. Like when people are fighting about, you don't go to small claims courts, you go to the fence tribunal because it's so common that people are fighting over fences, and lighting's becoming, outdoor lighting on neighbors is becoming
yeah.
like this as well. Before I throw it over to Mark Baker for some questions, so my father-in-law has a cottage in the Kawartha Highlands, which is another cottage country area in Ontario for those listening. Beautiful, beautiful area. And we were cleaning it out, and I found a little booklet. It was like a little bifold booklet like this with maybe 4 pages in it. It said, "What is light pollution?" And it was the
And that was published by
ninth,
FOCA, I
no, late
believe.
80s, late 80s. It was published
Oh,
by
wow.
the Kawartha, no, Mississauga Lake Cottagers Association or something like that. And they had produced this paper and had distributed it by boat to all the cottages on the Lake of
Right.
Mississauga. And I often say, man, this issue is so balkanized and so scattered, and different people are doing. Is it time for it to become a state issue or a province issue? I don't think it can ever become national, but should the Ontario government or the government of Pennsylvania or California, should they really be actively in this space working?
It sure wouldn't hurt. I think it would require, you'd have to put it in Ontario, for instance. Where does it go? Does it go under the MBA, or does it go under the Ministry of the Environment, or, or Ministry of Energy? Like, what large body is going to take this on? And then I think, again, you're going to get into municipalities and districts complaining that, well, we're different. you know you're telling the city of Toronto one thing, and you're telling Nipawin in way North Ontario
Sure.
another, the same thing, but we're different. So I'm not sure that it's feasible. It's probably a good idea, but I don't know that it would be feasible.
Hmm. Mark, just for those listening, before I go over to you, a ministry in Ontario is a department, right? So Department of Energy, Ministry of Energy. Mark Baker, go ahead.
Yeah, James, it's interesting to hear what you're doing and what you've been working on for such a long time. I would probably say that I'm a stick kind of guy. Um, those regulations to force the people. I mean, I would love it if people just did the right thing on their own, but I don't see it. We're overwhelmed by the LEDs, and the volunteer actions are not working. So I personally have filed lawsuits. But the neighbor on neighbor thing is really hard to solve. So we get complaints at the Soft Lights Foundation frequently. And they send me a photo. This neighbor's got this LED. For example, I just got one posted from a church. A church is using a blue rich light. It's a floodlight. It's horrific. And churches are kind of protected because of religious freedom and whatever like that. And so we've tried before. We write them a letter to the church and we say, this is a bad light. It's not actually providing any safety that you think it is. And they just simply refuse. Could you talk to us about, the carrot versus the stick issue?
Oh,
And have you
sure I
seen
can.
any successes? How do you
I've
convince
seen.
people to do the right thing?
So I started in Muskoka when I realized, when I wanted to take the education approach. I think, by and large, most people are well intentioned, right? And most people do not want to create pollution. They don't want to annoy their neighbors. They don't want to cause light trespass. They want their properties to be efficient and beautiful. So I took the approach of starting a program. Basically, it was a light pollution awareness presentation that I've delivered probably over 40 times to road associations and cottage associations, municipalities, probus clubs, Lions clubs, all over central Ontario. And it was a very straightforward approach. We would talk about what is light pollution, why is it bad, and what can we do about it from a layperson's. It was not a marketing gig for my business. It was to try to teach people. And the amount of gravity that the change that I witnessed from that program was incredible. I brought awareness to the average homeowner, property owner, about the light pollution that they were unknowingly creating. And so many people took action to change that. That encouraged taxpayers and property owners to go to their municipalities and say, you know what, I didn't even realize how bad it was. Look at this. What can we do about it? And I watched professionally in my business the change over 23 years that our company and others who started to say, wow, that INTEGRA company is doing a great job, but they have certain techniques that eliminate or reduce light pollution. We should do that too. And I watched entire bays and areas on Lake Muskoka, Lake Joseph, Lake Rosso, Mary Lake, where I lived, change over the course of 20 years. The light pollution situation in Muskoka improved over time by, I believe, education and by leadership. And one neighbor would make a massive change to their property, and then all the way around the bay, the phone would ring, and people would go, wow, what a difference that makes on that point of land. It's so soft now. Can you come to my property? So I am encouraged that this topic, as it grows in awareness and spreads throughout our communities, can be dealt with on a friendly and a learning model, one where we teach each other and help each other.
Consider Induction Lighting again. TeslaLightingCo.com. I'm just going to jump in, Mark, because I used to have a co-host on this show who complained that rich people were getting all the dark sky friendly lighting, or whatever you want to call it, and the poor neighborhoods were being lit up by prison yards. And when you reference that, like, what's the average cost of a cottage on Lake Muskoka these days? $5 million? Like, what is it up to now? I mean, that's a very, very wealthy area where people can be engaged, and it may be that area may have maybe 100,000 people living in it, but the cottagers, that's probably an easier place to go. Can it be
side, it's the lowest. Yeah. On the flip side, it's the lowest per capita income of residents in Ontario, and all of our clients aren't necessarily cottage owners. So.
Okay. But what I'm saying is those tight-knit, smaller communities, maybe where there's more money to make change, can that education approach be scaled? That's my question. Can it work in the city of Toronto? Could it work in San Francisco? Like, I've often said, you're never going to see the stars in San Francisco in my lifetime or my kid's lifetime. But, like, can that be scaled, or is that limited in its ability to impact smaller, more tighter knit communities that are in kind of wilderness or semi-wilderness environments? Is that limited to that?
I think the challenge in dense urban in cities is real. I did a number of jobs in the city for clients that I had from Muskoka. They would call me to do their property, and to make any noticeable effect or improvement on their property, sure, we could eliminate glare and reduce over illumination and eliminate direct uplighting, but in competition to the light pollution that already exists from all sorts of sources and all sorts of bad practices over the course of the last 100 years, it's an uphill battle. And I'm not going to say for a minute that we can fix the light pollution situation in Toronto or New York or LA or anywhere.
Sure.
It's probably past the point of no return.
Yeah, I think that as depressing as that sounds, um, I think that you're right about that, James. I think it's very tough. That's why we often talk on this show, and Mark, I'll throw it back over to you. We talk about night preservation for our plate like wilderness, semi-wilderness parks, areas like that. We talk about, and then we talk about, can we chip away at darkness restoration in our light polluted environments, Mark Baker? Can we chip away
Yeah.
at it? Mark, over to you.
Yeah, maybe I can shift gears a little bit. I'm interested in talking to James about some numbers. Can you give us some numbers that you use and maybe styles of lighting that you use in your business? It helps for people to know, like, to sort of have a baseline to reference. So do you use 300 lumens? Do you talk about the luminance of your products that you're installing? Are you using a lux meter to measure the light on the ground? And just if I could throw in one other thing, I've recently started to use the term direct viewing because the light
Right.
that goes straight into our eye is causing a different problem.
Right. So from day one, I was lucky enough. One of my mentors was the founder, the originator, if you will. Well, anyway. Bill Laughlin, 1952, started a company called Loran Inc., and he was the sort of the founder of low voltage outdoor lighting, landscape lighting, rather than line voltage or 120 volt. And one of his rules of great outdoor lighting design was see the effect, not the source. We do not use unshielded fixtures. Great lighting designers know this. All the rest of them will install glare bombs or pretty baubles or glass boxes with a viewable filament in them. I say all the time, you need to understand the physiology of the human eye to be a lighting designer. If you don't understand how our eyes see light and see objects and color and all the rest of it, you're not going to be able to be an effective lighting designer. So my number one rule is see the effect, not the source, every time. I do not want unshielded or glare or direct line of sight to the source. That comes from my background in stage lighting. When you go to a theater and see a performance on the stage is perfectly illuminated, but you don't see where the light comes from. You're seeing the actors and the sets. So that's all projected lighting. So that's a great tool to use in outdoor lighting because it also gives you incredible amount of illuminance control. So it's not about me explaining to my clients how many foot candles are going to be apparent or how many lumens this lamp uses, because my clients don't understand all of that technology and really have no interest in it. What they want is effective, efficient, attractive, with longevity. Those are the factors that they care about. Or beauty, safety, security. That's what we talk about in the field to our clients. In the background, you have to understand illuminance. You have to understand reflectivity and all of the physical properties of how artificial light is perceived by our eyes and the environment to be an effective outdoor lighting designer. So all of that stuff that you asked me about is in every single system design. We just don't talk about it all that much because bottom line is the client doesn't understand it and isn't interested. They just want it to work. So the techniques that we use, by not seeing sources, by using shielded fixtures and projecting light, it allows us to use far lower lumen output packages. We can tailor the color temperatures to be much more pleasing, totally out of the blue spectrum. Any of 3000 K in my world out is an absolute no-no. I don't go there. Sure, we can throw a 45 or 5000 a blue green on a blue spruce and make it pop. But my attitude is it shouldn't pop. It's already beautiful as a blue spruce. We don't need to enhance it in any way. So let's keep our color temperatures warm, pay high attention to R9, R13, R14 values within the color spectrum of the light so that warmth is there to minimize blues and grays and get the cold temperatures out, because that's what's most pleasing to the human eye.
Do you believe there's a relationship between dark nights and warmer colored lights that when you say pleasing, that's not a technical term.
Mm-hmm.
What you're saying is that
Nope.
people like it better, right, when it's warmer. Yeah.
Because our first light was the sun and fire. It's in our DNA to want to have that of fire. That makes us feel happy. That makes us feel comforted. That makes it's this. Now we get into the sociology of light, which is one of my, passions. Is how am I, a lighting designer, affecting my client, the neighborhood, the community, and the society at large? I want things to be pleasing so that people call me, right? It's the best marketing there is. So understanding the nature of reaction and the culture of light and humans is a really big thing. It's the sociology of light, and why are those warm temperatures so pleasing to us?
There's an argument in the lighting. I don't know if it's lighting designers. Maybe it would be more in that sociology of light that Asians prefer higher Kelvin temperatures. I've heard this many times. And they prefer cooler colored lights, and then whereas Swedes prefer very, very warm lights. So maybe it's not a human universal, but there's definitely an element of that warmer color has some kind of connection to relaxation, to calming down. It makes you want to, it definitely doesn't affect your sleep as bad, that kind of light, this sort of thing. Where do we go from here, James? Like, you expressed a similar type of 100-year problem to solve light pollution. Like, I believe that it's going to be very difficult to solve it in our light polluted environments. What's next for this movement, in your opinion, James? You're on the front line. You're on the streets. Is it the Caribbean? Is the Caribbean going dark skies? Like, what is it?
I think we just have to keep pressing on. And I like your idea of sort of chipping away at darkness preservation. I think that's a great idea because it can help other communities which aren't inundated with light pollution. But we also have to look at the sort of the economic factor of light pollution, but any environmental concern. I've sort of learned by living in different places that oftentimes environmental concerns are the topic, or they're important in wealthy areas. Because when you live in a relatively wealthy community or culture, you have the resources to concern yourself with things like how beautiful or how nice are our outdoor environments at night. When you live in a culture or community that is not as privileged and not as wealthy, you're going to be less concerned about things like trash on the side of the roads and what color temperature is this light bulb that I'm buying for my home, or how bright and what color temperature should that flat panel LED security light be that I'm going to blast off of my soffits to light my entire backyard to keep the bad guys away. So it's a tough one to move this agenda forward across all areas. A lot has to do with wealth and people's interest in these environmental topics.
It's interesting that you're absolutely right. Whenever it comes to any environmental issue, the idea of taxing people with austerity and making them poorer will not help the environment. That will always make the environment worse. As people become more wealthy, they become more concerned. They take a longer term look at where they're living. They become more engaged if they own their home. Wealth translates into care for the environment. Poverty translates into no care for the environment. So I couldn't agree more. Mark, do you have some final questions or thoughts for James before we get into the closure of the show.
Yeah, James, I wouldn't mind asking one more question about security because you mentioned it as part of your program. So, Michael and I believe that lighting does not provide extra security. I believe that lighting helps you navigate so that you're safe and don't trip over things, but I don't believe that it protects you from criminality. What's your take on that issue of security provided by lighting?
Yeah, it's an open question, James.
I
Like we don't know the
Yeah.
answer totally, but what's your take on that whole thing?
My take on it is that effective outdoor lighting enhances a property's security. Twofold. One, it gives the occupant the ability, and we're talking about effective outdoor lighting, not polluting, brutal, glare-filled outdoor lighting. By softly, gently, and broadly lighting the outdoor of a residential or even commercial property, I think you're improving security by twofold. One, you're giving the occupants the ability to see out. You can see in a gently lit landscape, you can see a moth flutter across a property line because your eye is super sensitive and you're not overburdened by too much light. In a completely black environment, you're not going to see anything moving. Similarly, by gently and properly illuminating a property, it's enhancing its security from afar because it's giving it a occupied or lived-in look, and it's also from the person interested in doing harm. They're looking at that property going, wait a minute, I'm going to be detected. I'm going to be visible on this property. Instead of a dark hedge line leading up to a shadowy pergola, leading right up to a double glass screen door on the back of an entrance, unlit, that's an opportunity. If it's properly illuminated, the realization is I'm completely visible on this property. I'm going to the next one. It's dark. So my experience lighting cottages and homes in Muskoka, a very dark place with large acreage, and here in the Caribbean, a very densely populated place, but with a much higher propensity for property violations and damage, outdoor lighting is absolutely increases a property's security, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm not sure Mark and I agree with you, but I think that, like I said, there's a lot of conflicting evidence in that. Would you suggest that lights on all night long increase a house's security, or should they go off at some point in the night?
It depends on your community and your risk factor. So here in Providenciales, where I live and work now, we will leave the roadside zones of a home dusk till dawn, and we will time the side and canal or beachfront or backside of the lot where there's much lower risk of intrusion. And we'll put those on a timer or a control system that allows the occupant to select the off time. So it's more of a lifestyle thing on the back side of the home, but the front side on the roadside, absolutely, we here, given the risk factor of this community, we run dusk to dawn.
So that's a belief. So you believe that it increases security. I'm not so sure, and Mark doesn't believe for sure. I know. Would you say you don't believe it increases security, Mark, or you're not sure like me? I'm not sure. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a belief that I've developed over research that I've read and people that I've talked to and such, that we all seem to have a belief that that light enhances the security. But like one counter argument would be, but the thieves have eyes also. So if it's a 100% dark, how do they navigate?
Yeah,
Wouldn't it be safe to have no light at all, because then they can't see either?
Yeah, so I don't illuminate. I live on a farm on 30 acres, and I'm about, I'm going to speak in Canadian here. I'm about 1 kilometer back from the concession road. So that would be like, I don't know, 2/3 of a mile. And I keep my house completely dark at night because I don't want anyone to know my house is there. And so that's a form of safety as well, right? Like not seeing the house can also be a form of safety. But then, people have their own beliefs with respect to this, and they live in different environments, and they have different people living in those environments. So it's very difficult for me to be judgmental. However, I will say this. It's an axiomatic presupposition that more light equals more safety. It's not a true one. It's just a presupposition. People presuppose that if they put more light, insurance companies, police officers, lawyers, municipalities will tell you that if there is an accident or a crime, we need more light. But that presupposes...
The big challenge there is more, the term more, right? So I'm talking about the effective application of relatively tiny amounts of light compared to the other guy who says more light, right? Yeah. I need how many 100,000 lumens can that flat panel LED thing put on my driveway?
Listen, Mark's not the No Lights Foundation. It's the Soft Lights Foundation, right?
Perfect. We get along, man. We're fine.
Yeah. It's not the No Lights Foundation. The No Lights Foundation.
It was right. What James said was soft lighting. And then that's where my heart goes, oh, yes, James, thank you. Right. Yeah. It's a big difference.
Just the right amount, right where you need it. Right.
James, you got
we're often using 150 down to even 75 lumen sources downlighting a pathway from a side entry gate to the side door of a property. So, which could be 100 feet long, and we use 4 of those sources. We're aiming for like 1.5 foot candles. This is full moon level illumination. We're not talking about aiming for a parking lot at Walmart at 5 to 7 foot candles.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, what James is talking about is wayfinding and indication of occupancy, these kinds of things that lighting tells people. Here's the way to the door, so you don't trip over the step. He's not talking about blast those criminals with prison yard lighting so they don't come here, which is what a lot of people do, though. So there's there's huge degrees of difference in this argument that need to be heavily unpacked, and it would take a long time. James, any final thoughts for the Restoring Darkness listeners and for the night preservation movement?
Keep on keeping on. Don't get tired.
There you go.
The battle is long.
And, folks, it is, again, it's not going to be solved in my lifetime or Mark's lifetime or James's lifetime, but we're going to keep working on it. And I want you guys to think about induction lighting. I know it used to be LED's ugly sister that didn't really take off, but I've seen a lot of positive things from Tesla Lighting Company. They have low Kelvin temperature. They have street lights, fully shielded. And remember, induction is a reflected light source. It's not a direct light source like LED. And so there's a difference in how human eyes perceive that reflected, or what I call mixed light, than they do from LED boards. It's less glary, and so on and so forth. So consider induction lighting. Go to Tesla Induction Lighting Co. No, Tesla. What is it, Scott? Tesla. I had it written down here a second ago. Where did I put it? I always forget their darn website. Sorry. Thank you, Phil and Mike at Tesla Lighting Company. Sorry, TeslaLightingCo.com. And of course, you can support the great and mighty Mark Baker by going to RestoringDarkness.com. You click the donate link. And then there's 2 options. You can donate to the production costs of the Restoring Darkness podcast if you want to. There's no pressure. We're also funded by other parties. Or you can donate directly to the Soft Lights Foundation, which is Mark Baker's work. He's doing great work and needs all the help he can get. And of course, everyone has their own way to contribute. One of those ways is listening, sharing, liking, sending the podcast to your friends and colleagues if it's a good one that you really liked. And yeah, so all you folks out there that in this movement, if you're listening to this show, you either hate Michael Colligan and you're looking some way to take him down, or you're into the Restoring Darkness movement, the night preservation movement. And so if you're in that movement, we all can do things like sharing and sending and creating awareness. So all you folks out there, thank you for listening.